Hi, it's Mike with AskTractorMike.com. I'm at the Woods booth at the National Farm Machinery Show with Rob Dewey. Rob, what's your title?
I'm the VP of Engineering at Woods Equipment Company.
And I got a great question for Rob today, and Rob's been around the business a long time. A lot of my viewers ask, how big a cutter can I pull with my tractor? And generally, Rob, they've got a 40-horse tractor, and they're looking at a cutter that's rated for 40, or it could be 45, and they'll say, will this work?
Sure.
And so I want to know from you, how do you factor in what you rate your cutters at?
Okay. What you're going to see from the manufacturers is going to be a minimum horsepower rating, and it's going to be PTO horsepower. So there's engine horsepower, and then there's going to be PTO horsepower. PTO horsepower is generally going to be 3 to 8 horsepower lower than your engine horsepower. If you have a hydrostatic transmission in your compact tractor, for instance, that will take more of your horsepower. What we'll give you is we'll say this cutter, like behind us here, is rated for 45 horsepower minimum. That would be 45 PTO horsepower in flat conditions where you're not climbing large hills and such. Other factors that would play into it, if it's a 3-point mounted piece of equipment, you have to worry about your weight ballast, how much weight you're putting on your 3-point. If you have a tractor with a loader, which most of the smaller tractors do nowadays, you're probably okay for weight ballast, but you need to check that and be sure. You can have a 3-point piece of equipment that your tractor is capable of mowing with, power-wise, but your tractor's too light for without the proper ballasting.
The other thing is size of material. If this cutter is rated to cut 2-inch material, if I went into a field and it's a forest of 2-inch material, that's not really what it's rated for.
That's exactly right. When we say 2-inch material, we're talking about 1 or 2-inch trees at a time. And you want to take your time through them. You may be able to mow that field of 2-foot tall grass at 4 or 5 miles an hour with your tractor, but you don't want to go tearing through trees at that speed. You want to slow down, take the trees easy. So if you see a cutter 2-inch trees, it'll mow 2-inch trees. It may even mow a bit bigger trees than 2-inch if you take your time and use your common sense.
And that brings up another question. How fast do you want to mow? How wide a swath are you going to take is all got to be factored in.
Yeah, that's exactly right. How tall is your material? If you're mowing pasture that you keep near a lawn, like a lot of people do, their pastures look very much like people's lawns, you can go to a wider rotary cutter or mower to mow that area. If you're going to only mow once a season and it's going to be shoulder high, you're going to think about using a narrower cutter with your tractor because it's going to take a lot more horsepower to power through that. You may, if it's tall, make a couple passes at it. Take off part of it at your maximum height and then come back and hit it again.
Yeah, and I always told people when I was in the dealership world, you don't have to cut the full 6 feet. If you're in taller stuff or bad stuff, you can cut 5 feet or 4 feet. And
sure. Yep, exactly. And one thing about mowing that tall material I want to mention is always inspect the ground where you're going to mow or be very familiar with it, because if you go into a piece of property the first time to mow and it's waist high, there could be something laying in that grass that could either damage your tractor or rotary cutter, or you could strike it, and despite all the safety measures we take, it could come flying out and either damage property or injure somebody. So you want to be very familiar with your surroundings before you go tearing in there and mowing.
And the other thing, Woods is a company that makes attachments, and the tractor is so important to this equation as well. If you have an older tractor, as tractors age, they develop less horsepower. So if you're talking about a 20 or 30 or 40-year-old tractor and you're trying to max it out in terms of cutter, you could get in trouble because your tractor might not have it anymore.
That's exactly right. As tractors wear, they do lose horsepower. That is an issue. Now, the expert that we haven't mentioned here when you go to look for a rotary cutter or a tractor is your dealer. He's familiar with what your neighbors use. He can even come out and look at the area you're going to mow. He's probably sold a lot of rotary cutters in your area, and he can make the best judgment there on site for you.
I think that's the best advice. If you're in doubt, get your dealer out there, look at your property, evaluate your tractor, all those factors. You really need to be there in order to know, is this going to work?
That's absolutely correct. And the other thing is, as you use this over the years, always inspect your safety shielding, your thrown object shielding, like I said, the area we're going to mow. Make sure that you're going to get an operator's manual with it. Follow all your lubrication instructions and your maintenance instructions for it. Every time you run your rotary cutter, you should inspect the cutting blades to make sure they're not damaged and they're still in good shape. if you hit something, it happens. You hit rocks, you hit something you didn't know was there, extremely hard. Stop the tractor, shut it off, go and look under the cutter. Don't climb under the cutter and rely on hydraulics to hold it up, because especially like we talked about older tractors, that's one of the first things that goes on them is the hydraulics sink down. You don't want to be surprised and be trapped underneath it. So the blades are very important that you keep an eye on them though. If they fail on you and break, that's a thrown object you don't want.
Bottom line is I can't tell them, you can't tell them as a manufacturer what's going to work with what combination, because we can't see their place, we can't know their tractor and so on.
That's exactly right. Like I started in the beginning, we will make a minimum recommendation that's pretty solid for flat land mowing. You know, if we say 45 horsepower minimum, that's a field of 2 foot tall weeds and grass that needs to be mowed down. That tractor would handle that. If you throw in hills, taller materials, tougher conditions, you're probably going to need a bigger tractor, and the dealer can evaluate that and give you the advice you need.
If you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'd be honored. Click the mic face icon and check the bell so you're notified when I post future videos. Here's my Tractor Fun Store with a lot of unique items for tractors. Check it out at my website. Here's another video you might want to watch. Thanks for watching.